Hello, everybody. My name's Tom. I work for Grafana Labs now, although every KubeCon I seem to be at a different company. I'm still working on Prometheus, and today I'm come to talk about Prometheus monitoring mixins. So this is a way of packaging together dashboards and alerts in a kind of reusable, redistributable way, and I'm here to talk to you about why. The story behind this is we were helping people adopt Prometheus and Grafana and do their monitoring setups for them. And we found we were copying and pasting the alerts we'd defined for Kubernetes, for for Cassandra, for Consul, for etcd. We were copying and pasting them between customers and doing slight tweaks. And when we got to like the 6th or 7th time, we're like, this has got to stop. So we've been working, a bunch of us have been working over the past few months on a way of making this much more reusable. Hopefully we can avoid this copy and paste nightmare, and hopefully we can use this to kind of enforce best practices and like iteratively improve the status quo of like how monitoring is done. Just a bit of housekeeping. I'm currently on 990 followers on Twitter. So if 10 of you could follow me, that would make me really happy. So there is already a way of sharing dashboards. And this is Grafana Labs, it's the company I now work for. They have an online system that allows you to upload dashboards, and then other people can really easily download them. And I can't say nasty things because they're now my employer. But there's some challenges with this approach. Most of the dashboards that I've got from Grafana.com give me things that look like this. They basically just haven't quite worked. Every single time I've gone to, wow, they're bright, aren't they? They've really lit up the screen. Every time I've got them, I've had to go in and tweak with them and play with them to make them work for my install of Kubernetes or my install of anything. I'm going to turn that off. And normally the problems we've had is kind of the queries that they've used have made assumptions about the labels that are being used for the targets and for the time series. So this is trying to tell me how much memory I'm using in my entire cluster. The sum of all of the container memory usage divided by the sum of all the machine. And it's trying to do it for a particular node. But in my Prometheus Kubernetes setup, I don't put the host name of the pods and containers as a label, because that's actually a bad practice, and you shouldn't do that. You should be doing it through joins and other methods. And so this is really common. Most of the dashboards I've downloaded this way haven't worked. And so the take home here is that to fix this problem, dashboards should not be having opinions about the label sets you use. This should be configuration that I can inject after I've downloaded the dashboard. And that's not the only problem. We want to encourage people who write software to also tell us how to monitor it. Normally, the author of the software is the best person to do this. They know how it can fail. They know, what the error cases are. And so really, we want people to distribute alert definitions and dashboards with their code. And CoreOS and etcd do this, which is really good, right? Really should be rewarded. But the problem is, I come in and I copy and paste this and I put it into my cluster, and then it doesn't quite work, inevitably. And so I fix a few things, and I make a PR and I share them, and everyone's doing this. But there's not really a way to consume the iterative improvements that are happening on open sourced monitoring configurations. There's no easy way. I'd have to keep going and checking and copying and pasting and reapplying my label sets to this config, which is just doesn't happen. So we want a way that we can configure these labels. We want a way that we can extend them. So Jack here gave me a really good example just earlier. He wants to inject into the alerts the ability to add URLs to his playbook. So the etcd alerts they distribute don't have that, obviously, because it's his playbook. So he wants to be able to extend them. I want them to be reusable. I want them to be easy to install, and more importantly, easy to stay up to date with. I want to treat all of this like code. Code is constantly improving, and if you're vendoring or if you're using dependencies properly, then you're consuming those updates and getting those improvements. So I want to do this for my monitoring config. And then the final thing, I want this to be deployment agnostic, because Prometheus and Grafana support way more than just Kubernetes. And so however we do this, I don't want it to be too Kubernetes specific. Yeah. So let's look at the first one, configurable and extensible. Turns out actually Grafana does have a way of doing this. Grafana has templates. I didn't know about this for a really long time. I've been using Grafana for maybe 3 or 4 years. And I only found out about this in the last year. So maybe I'm slow, but you can define templates at the top of your dashboard, and then from there you can use drop-downs to select, and you can substitute them into the queries. And this actually solves most of the problems for Grafana dashboards. Unfortunately, Grafana.com doesn't support PRs. Otherwise, I'd be going through and making these changes to the dashboards on there. So that kind of comes to my second point I was making. But also, this approach doesn't work for Prometheus recording rules and Prometheus alerts, because there's no UI for those. You know, they're files on disk. The other thing is, I'm a big fan of my dashboards being read-only in Grafana, and they should really be stored in my config management in GitHub, and they should be deployed whenever I change them. And if a change needs to be made, I want them to be PR'd into that, and I want them to be code reviewed, and I'm going to use this mechanism to slowly and gradually improve the quality of my dashboards. And so, building dashboards that way, if you've ever exported a dashboard from Grafana, you'll see it's a massive blob of JSON, and it's really hard to code review, and it's really hard to enforce standards on. So yeah, we're not going to do it like this. So we're going to use a config language, and then you get into the big debate of which is the best config language. So this is the next 30 minutes of the talk, which is the best config language. I'm going to review all of them. No, not really. I'm going to jump straight to the answer. You can do YAML and JSON, but they're not really dynamic enough. They're just data structure definitions, effectively. There's no way of substituting. I know YAML has some extensions to do this, but yeah, I'm not going to do that. And actually quite common in most of the places I see some combination of this for doing, at least for doing their Kubernetes deployments and so on. They're using mstub or M4 Jinga to template out the differences between different environments. And this is fine. This is better than just having the raw YAML. But the problem here is that doesn't give you any kind of abstractive power. You can't define some defaults for all deployments. Or you can't define, in this world, you can't define defaults for all dashboards. And what's more, I want to be able to build functions which allow me to, say, generate recording rules for my histograms. I probably should have asked at the very beginning, is everyone familiar with Prometheus? I'm using recording rules and histograms, hands up if you're using Prometheus. Okay, and so you're all happy with these terms, good. And hands up if you're using Grafana? Yay! Okay, so I want functions, basically. I want some sort of abstraction. And what I think is actually becoming quite popular is using real programming languages for our configuration. A company called Improbable in London uses Go for all of their configuration, for their monitoring, for their deployment objects in Kubernetes. I think this is a project called Playwright. I couldn't find it online, so I don't know whether it's open source, but it's quite a cool system. At a previous company I worked at, Weaveworks, we used Python to define our dashboards. And this is way easier to read than the YAML, the JSON you use in Grafana. And you can see how doing a PR and a code review on this would be pretty straightforward, right? And also, this would be pretty straightforward to be able to substitute in the job equals bits. But I don't like this approach. I don't like this approach because this is a full-blown programming language. This feels like I'm writing a program. It doesn't feel like I'm writing code. It's a bit intangible. But also, Python has global state. I hate global state. I don't want side effects in my config. That's really strange to me. And I want a bit more predictability. And I worked at Google. So what I want is JSonNet. JSonNet is a configuration language. It comes out of Google, but it's not actually used by Google as far as I've been told. It's based on JSON, and it adds a whole bunch of extra power. It's inspired by, in the same way Prometheus is inspired by Borgmon, JSonNet is inspired by BCL, the Borg configuration language. So this is the language internally within Google that they use to describe jobs running on Borg, which is, I guess, the predecessor to Kubernetes. What's more, JSonNet can can render out YAML files, INI files, JSON files, you basically name it, or just strings and just normal files, written by a chap called Dave Cunningham, who I don't think is here, but he's a good guy. To give you a kind of idea what JSonNet adds, I've just taken this straight off their website. JSON, as I said, is just kind of the data definition. And JSON adds variables, conditionals, arithmetic functions, where you can read. But mainly it adds functions and it adds string substitutions. So I'm now going to go to his website and give you a bit of a demo. If I can fiddle with my screens. Good. So the website's recently been revamped and it's pretty good. And he's included a little JSONit JavaScript compiler. So you can see you can edit this and it compiles out. So we'll start from scratch. Okay, an empty file is an error, which is good. So JSONit, you've got JSON objects. You don't need the quotes around the keys, which actually I don't know whether you need in JSON. I haven't written JSON for a while. Okay, and so if you do that, you'll see it renders an object called hello world, right? This is trivial. But if I don't want to just say hello to the world, I can do things like hello substitution name. And then I can do local name equals Tom. Okay, hello Tom, even better. It's getting personal. So now I actually want to use this and I want to kind of make the person who I can say hello to configurable, as you might expect. So I'm going to put name in here, and I'm going to leave it empty. Okay, and then here I'm going to refer to name. So this is the first kind of bit of magic, which is called self, and it refers to the dictionary you're in, basically. So you see this is saying I must supply a name. So I'm going to merge this. This is the second bit of magic in JSONit, which is the merge operator. And I'm going to have to quote that. Okay, so now I can say hello to Tom. But the output's spitting out name Tom, right? I don't want that in the output, because that's kind of a hidden variable, right? So if we do a double colon there, double colon means hide. You'll see this a lot in the future, so this is why I'm putting it in. You can also put arbitrary stuff in here. You could do be goodbye. And you'll see how the merge operator works. Okay, so this is the basics of JSONit. And you can see from these building blocks, you can build up quite a lot of complexity. There was some other stuff I wanted to show you. Done string substitution, done hidden fields, done merging. And there's syntactic sugar around the merge operator, which is kind of cool. So I'll call this local helloer. Yep, that's definitely spelled right. And then I'll do hello. Okay, and you can see how I haven't had to put the plus in there yet because it's syntactic sugar, basically. And this kind of makes it feel like you're instantiating a hello, if you see what I mean. You're not. You're just merging the dictionary name equals Tom with a helloer dictionary, and it becomes this thing. Okay, another example. Merging references. There's one extra special reference that I'm going to do. So B is going to be another object, and inside B we're going to put C, and we're going to make that a list. And inside here we're going to put a string, just a string, goodbye. Okay, so this is kind of what we expect, yep. And then we can sub the name in, but self.name wouldn't work here, right? Because we're in a string, we're in a list, right? Field does not exist name. So what you can do is you can do super. Nope, that's wrong. You can do dollar. Dollar name. Dollar refers to the upmost object. So in this case, dollar is referring to this object here. And fingers crossed it works. Yes, I seem to know what I'm doing. So, anything else to show you? Yes, there's one more, and this is where it starts to get really powerful. You can do things like, we're going to go a super.a plus dude, I don't know. Right, and so super refers to, in this case, the thing you're being merged with. No, it doesn't. Oh, yeah, it does. I have to supply a name. Yeah, hello, Tom dude. Excellent. So that's basically JSONit. It's really straightforward in my opinion. It's got a standard library for doing all sorts of functions and things, and obviously it's got maths and so on. But really it's that merge operator that is the important thing, because that's what you use for composition, which is what you use to build up your monitoring config. There's a few extra examples on here. I'd encourage you. It shows how to do a function, which is just how you'd expect it to work. And then down here it shows you how to manifest out INI files and other types of files. But they're less interesting in my opinion. So unmirror. There used to be a way for Keynote to automatically mirror and unmirror, I'm pretty sure, or I just dreamt it. Okay, so that's JSONit. That's the language we're going to use. And now I'm going to show you how we're going to use it, because it's not enough for everyone to go off and and just dive in and start using JSONit to do this, because the idea is that these mixins we're going to produce are going to be reusable by people who didn't write them. So we want some kind of standard, a lightweight standard at least, to say what the keys are going to be. So this is it. This is the standard, all 5 lines of it. You put configuration in a thing called _config, and it's hidden. The reason we say _config is just to make it really clear that this thing's reserved and that you shouldn't use this. The underscore is not meaningful. The plus here means when this whole dictionary is merged with another dictionary, that merge will become recursive. So you can have an optional plus here. If it doesn't have the plus, this config would overwrite the config of anything you're merging with, which is not what you want. You basically always want plus : when you're defining these things. Then we've got a dictionary full of dashboards, and then we've got a list full of alerts and a list full of recording rules. And they could be the same thing, I guess, for the pedants out there. The config, normally, this is Frederick, who I've been working with on this. I should have mentioned him earlier, sorry. Is he here? Oh, he's doing the deep dive. Okay, well, he's been working on me with this. It's a real shame he's not here, but we've settled on this format for providing the config. You basically have to provide the key value pair that gets substituted into your Prometheus query. You put it in config, call it a selector, and then when you define an alert, it gets pretty code heavy from here on in, I'm afraid, guys. When you define an alert, you substitute in the selector you want with the config, like that. This is string substitution in JSONit. It's pretty good. Triple bars are just for doing big multi-line strings, which I had to do to fit them on the slides. And this is a kubepod crash looping alert, which you can consume and run against any Kubernetes cluster and any kube state metrics. You just have to provide the label that selects your kube state metrics. So for instance, I think if you're deploying CoreOS, this is called name equals kube state metrics. Whereas if you deploy, on my clusters at least, I tend to include the namespace in the job name, so I don't accidentally aggregate jobs across namespaces, which is almost never what I want to do. You can see when you render this out, it comes out like this, which is, for everyone here who's ever written a Prometheus alert definition, this is a Prometheus alert definition. I've made it nice and bold so you can see where the substitutions come in. So that's the JSONit, and that's the rendered YAML. And I'll show you how to render it next. So reusable. So here we're going to look at how do we satisfy the second bit of the requirements, which is being able to download, easily install, and stay up to date. It's really key that we can stay up to date. Otherwise, all those drive-by commits on GitHub are for nothing. So how do we do that? Well, this is actually where I was hoping Frederick would join me and say this, but it turns out he can't. We've written a tool called Jsonnet Bundler. You don't have to type Jsonnet Bundler every time you want to use it, because JB was not taken on most of our machines, so it's just called JB. And this is a package manager for Jsonit, basically. Like, it's super simple right now. Frederick will admit it's been written very quickly, let's say. But it works, and we're using it, and we're using it with a couple of other people now. This was inspired by Bundler from Ruby. I have no idea what that is, because I don't use Ruby. But I do know Golang. And we've tried to avoid the horror show that is Golang rendering and package management. You install it with Go, because it's written in Go, and then you have to do an init, which just drops a couple of empty files there. Then to install a package, so we've got this Kubernetes monitoring GitHub org, and inside there, off here, is Kubernetes Mixin, which we've slowly been working on together. And this will dump it into your vendor directory. And inside, you'll notice it's installed this thing called Graffonit. Graffonit is a JSONit library for building Grafana dashboards, and is also a mouthful to say. It's noticed that is a transient dependency of Kubernetes Mixin and installed it that way. And that's really like the minimum viable product we thought for a package manager. You can install stuff, it'll install dependencies, and if you run JB install without any parameters, it'll update everything, which are the 3 things we wanted. The next thing you can do, if you want to consume this and start customizing these mixins and say, combine, mix in 3 or 4 of them, you dump a little file in your directory called monitoring.jsonit. It can be called whatever you want, actually, but inside there, you see you can override the config, and this is where we get into the JSONit, right? So we're taking the Kubernetes mixin, we're importing it, we're merging it with this dictionary that contains a config dict which is merged into the other config dict and overrides the C advisor selector, cube state metrics here. We've changed it to job equals cube state metrics instead of job equals default cube state metrics. And then if you render it out with this incredibly long and complicated command, you can see the job is changed to cube state metrics. And there we go, it's done. That's how you supply your opinions about your labeling in your cluster to the Mixins. So I think that's pretty cool. One of the things we really want to do, we didn't get time to, is package up all of these commands into some kind of script or little like mix tool that allows you to lint and check your Mixins work and allows you to deploy them a bit easier. But these will basically render out into the YAML files that you can then load into Prometheus or the JSON files you can load into Grafana. And the third thing I really wanted, right, was deployment agnostic. We said we want to support more than just Kubernetes, although we want a really first-class experience on Kubernetes. So we want to, we need a way of building normal files which you can integrate into your config management system. So here's the commands. It's just JSONit. This one's quite cool. The -m command will generate out a subdirectory full of dashboards. So I'm going to just give that a go, see if it works. Clear my screen. Didn't clear. There we go. Oh, where's it gone? Okay. Well, didn't want that. Oh, you can't see it. That's what's going on. How does computer work? It's not just me, right? No one else can see it. This is fun, isn't it? Right then. So we'll go to KubeCon. So there's loads of stuff in here. Let's just remove it all. Don't put slash. And now empty directory will we'll install JB. Go get JB. I already had it. That was quick. I'm supposed to have, there we go. We can JB init, and then we can install the Kubernetes Mixin. I know I'm cheating because I'm using my bash history, but I type like a 5-year-old. So there we go, we've installed it. If we do tree on vendor, you can see all the stuff that's been included and the transient dependencies. And then if we touch monitoring.jsonit, and then we go back to the slides and copy and paste what's in there. Where was it? Here. Oh, I already have it here. That's what I was supposed to do. Now, if I save that, then you can see monitoring.jsonit has what I wanted. And if I do JSonit, so this one is doing including the vendor directory, manifesting everything out into a folder called dashboards, and then importing executing the Grafana dashboards. So if I run that, need to create a directory. You can tell it's a real demo because it gets errors. And if we run it one more time, there we go. We can see we have a set of dashboards. If we look in dashboards, there's a set of JSON dashboards. If we go and have a look in one of these dashboards, it's cluster. Then we look for cube state metrics. Nope, not found. It's a bit annoying. Oh, because these are using dashboards, a bad example. So if we manifest out the alerts, will this work first time? No, it won't, because I'm using the wrong command. Command is here. This will work first time. No, it won't. So close. And then it's going to have munged the quotes. Live demos. Why do we put ourselves through this? Right, fingers crossed. Yay, there's some alerts. And you should be able to see that all of the job names in these alerts they've removed the namespace prefix that I specify in my clusters because let's say this cluster doesn't have them. So, we're almost done. There is one more thing in good presentation style, and this is CaseOnIt. I touched on CaseOnIt earlier. This is the tool that Brian down here works on. And it's a library and a tool for building Kubernetes objects with CaseOnIt, or with JSONnet. And it's really good. We use it with all our customers. And the actual reason we chose JSONnet to use the mixins is because once you've got the same language for your Kubernetes deployments and objects and the same language for your dashboard, you can start sharing the configuration between them. And so this is really cool. We've built, well, I think it's cool at least. We've built Prometheus CaseOnIt, which is a library, a CaseOnIt library that contains deployments for Prometheus, Grafana, Node Exporter, Kubestate metrics. And then it depends on those keys that are included in the mixins to manifest out all of the dashboards and alerts into config maps and then apply them into your cluster, all in one step. You don't have to compile them or anything. It's worth noting that we do it in a particular opinionated way here. Frederick is working on the Prometheus operator and Kube Prometheus and Kube Grafana, his projects, to also support mixins, so that there's multiple options and multiple ways of deploying these to Kubernetes, if you use the Prometheus operator, for instance. And so I think this is super cool. I'm going to just give you a quick example. No, I'm not actually, because I don't have time. Come find me afterwards, I'll give you a quick example. But it effectively means there's a single layer, a single namespace, a single object domain for all of our configuration, and we can just add stuff in, and it becomes incredibly easy to manage. So that's Prometheus monitoring mixins. I haven't got my notes because I didn't turn monitoring off. Give me a second. There it is, mirroring. That's monitoring mixins. We have built a whole bunch of them already. This basically has taken the stuff we've worked on with our customers over the past 6 months and turned them into mixins. We've got the one going into CoreOS for etcd, and Frederick's super supportive of this. Loads of improvements going in there. I built one for Consul, hoping to merge that. I mean, it's in my old company's public monorepo, but we're hoping to merge that into the Consul exporter if they'll let me. I own the Vault exporter. The company Grapeshot sponsored all my work on that. So we've already put the Vault exporter mixin in with that. The Kubernetes mixin, as we discussed, this is in this new organization. And we've also got a semi-Prometheus mixin that kind of for self-monitoring Prometheus and dashboards as part of Prometheus CaseOnIt. I'm going to break that out and put it somewhere a bit more official. Working on a Node Exporter one, so this is effectively going to take a whole bunch of the alerts that we've defined in the Kubernetes one, but that are more generic and would apply to pretty much any Linux machine. And we're going to hopefully include that in the Node Exporter. Internally, I'm working on ones for Cassandra, ones for MySQL, and you name it, basically, any system. So monitoring mixins, configurable and extensible, reusable, hopefully, easy to install, deployment agnostic. I've got a little bit of work to do. I want to put URLs in Playbooks. Currently, we haven't figured out a way of doing that. I want to build this tool so you don't have to have those cumbersome commands. We did this all in the open, Frederick and I. So if you've been on the Prometheus mailing list, or if you've been on, I think, the CaseOnIt Slack, a whole bunch of different places, we've been posting the design docs. They're publicly readable and comment on. Please, tell me if you think this is a good idea or not. Similarly, Frederick's put the package management proposal up there. I'll put these slides online so you don't have to do this. I wanted to call out a few people who have really helped me on this project. This is Dave, looking very thoughtful. You can find him at Spark Prime on GitHub as well. He's a really cool guy. He's really been really supportive of our work here. And privately, he told me, probably shouldn't repeat this, I guess. Well, no, he told me that this is really what he envisaged for JSONnet when he built it, years ago. And that he never managed to get this far because he got bogged down in other things, but that he's really happy that JSONnet is kind of this configuration language that should be able to combine multiple different domains. Frederick obviously has been my partner on this. He's built the package management. He's been, he co-owns all of this with me. Julius, I don't know whether he's here, but he had a previous design doc suggesting, a lot of the problems we've tried to solve were motivated by the design doc that he circulated. And again, super great feedback from him. David, I stole his slides because he gave this talk, or a version of this talk, at the Berlin Cloud Native meetup a while ago, as this was much early on. And Grapeshot, I wanted to give a shout out to Grapeshot, who sponsored a lot of the work on this. Yes, thank you very much. Thanks for listening. Any questions? No questions. No, there's one there. Go on, shout, I'll repeat.
What do you do with all the old dashboards that there are? Are you working on a tool to extract them, to dump them down to be used?
That's a great question. So the question is, what do I do with my existing dashboards? And how do I translate them? Is there a tool? So the nice thing is, JSON is a superset of JSON. So you can just include your old dashboards as big JSON blobs in your mixins. And then, put a little bit of effort into maybe tidying them up and adding in the substitutions. But JSONit is just JSON. So you don't really need, there's no migration necessary effectively. Obviously they're static and you don't get the benefits of this. We don't have a tool. I think it's a great suggestion. Would you like to write one? I mean, I'd encourage it, I'd help. I think, I remember Jono at Weaveworks was saying he's working on a tool which is more like a set of regexes, I think, for translating them into GraphoNet. And if that approach works, then, into GraphonaLib. And if that approach works, we could potentially use the same tool to translate them into GraphoNet and JSONit. Maybe, I don't know. But I think it's a great suggestion, thank you. Other question, up here, anyone? It's a big audience, so I'm going to go over there at the back. Are we going to have any curated lists? I don't know. I want this to be a big open thing. Like, I don't want to rule this with an iron fist. I've got to let it fly if it's going to flourish. So I kind of like how with Go, there's no Go package manager. There's no central Go repository, and you can just publish anything on GitHub. And that's why we went with that model for JB. They can just be anywhere. I suspect, like with Prometheus, there is a list of exporters, and it's relatively easy to add to that. We don't stop you adding to it. We just stop you having 2 or 3 entries that are the same. So I said, maybe we'll do something like that, but we want to encourage this to grow. I'm not going to have a central list that you must add a PR to have an official mixin or anything like that. If you want to write one, just write one. Maybe, we'll see. If you think there should be one, I'd love to hear. Anyone down at the front? Bob.
CaseOnIt has a package manager?
CaseOnIt does have a package manager. We've been talking to Brian about what we're going to do about that. Because they're very similar, and there's slight differences. I would hope we can not have to, and we're both being flexible about it. And Brian said something to Bob that I didn't hear. We're looking at JB. Great, yeah. So, hopefully we can work together. We're talking about it. Anyone else over here? Yep, go.
Is there a good solution for dashboard JSON being too large for config maps?
Oh, where's Frederick? So the question was, is there a good solution for dashboard JSONs being too large for config maps? There is a tool maybe in the Prometheus operator, maybe it's in the Grafana repo, it's in one of Frederick's repos. It doesn't work with this yet, but it's on our radar of having a version that works with this. I would actually hope that we could just do it in CaseOnIt, because we've got, it's quite a powerful language. So there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to write some sort of tool to do that. And I guess we could, especially with the CaseOnIt support, we could just have a config map per dashboard at this rate. It would be pretty straightforward to do. But yes, we're aware of this problem, and we've got some thoughts around it. And we would love help. Up there. I'm not going to answer questions on Helm. Sorry, I've been told to be nice. No, I realize Helm has a lot more use than CaseOnIt. And I know Brian was telling me that they want to find a way that these can be, more compatible together. I guess I should probably look at a way of consuming mixins in Helm, as Helm is so widely used. It would make sense, really, wouldn't it? But I don't use Helm, so. Anyone else? No? Oh, one more.
Do you really take ice with your scotch?
This is old-fashioned, I think, and I don't drink them because I can't take alcohol that strong. This is why I thank David, because he sent me his slides, and that was his front page, and it was much better than the one I had. So I just thought it looked cool. But no, I don't drink spirits. Beer for me. Bob, last one. Would you use this to set up your relabel rules? Well, Prometheus CaseOnIt, which is my opinionated set of deployments for Prometheus on Kubernetes, has embedded in it a set of relabeling rules. And they're the best practices that I've learned in the 2 or 3 years I've been doing this. They're different than the Prometheus operator rules. So the relabeling rules are definitely outside of the scope of the mixins. And the whole point, I guess, of the mixins is to be able to support people with different relabeling rules. Yeah, so I guess that answers the question. No, this relabeling rules are beyond the scope of this, and really the way you deploy it will dictate your relabeling rules. Cool, I think we're out of time. If you've got any questions, feel free to come up front and we'll answer them later. Thank you very much.